It's our time. It's our time. It's our time. Hey there, I'm Shub from North of Normal. Welcome to One Song, One Story, the space where music and memory meet. The concept is simple. Each guest brings a song and we unpack what it really means to them. The stories it holds, the emotions it stirs, the moments it takes them back to. Because songs aren't just soundtracks, they're timestamps of who we've been and who we've become. Today's guest is Adam Lee, and I've got a feeling this one's going to hit deep. So let's press play and see where it takes us. Enjoy. Today I am joined by a dear friend for many years, author, photographer, world championship DJ, and donkey walker. Welcome to the One Song, One Story podcast, Adam Lee. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Shub. It's a pleasure to be here, and quite the honorifics you've quoted me there.
The biggest one was donkey walker, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I would quibble the author, but I'll accept all of the others.
Aspiring author? Would that be okay?
I think we could go with that. Yeah.
Good. And how are you today? How's your day going?
Not too bad in terms of my aspiring authorship. I've been doing a little bit of work on trying to get my book about walking a donkey published. And yeah, good, really. Can't complain.
And question, if today was a song, what would it be called? What would the title of that song be? And what would the vibe be?
God, you put me on the spot there. If today was a song, it would be called Strolling to the Library, and I guess it would be a kind of like lo-fi hip-hop kind of vibes, I guess.
Liking it. I can picture it in my head right now, actually. It's sounding good. It sounded good. We should make that one. I always like to start off with a song that connects us, okay? I have one. I don't know if you have one. If you don't, no worries. Maybe it'll come to you as we're going through. But the song that connects us, regardless of all the music we listen to, like hip-hop, funk, soul, everything, is the song that I always think of when I see you is Britney Spears. And I don't know, it's either Toxic or Slave, I think. Because I remember you were DJing once and you were playing loads of amazing tunes. Then you managed to slip Slave in there, and
it would have been Toxic.
Was it Toxic?
I mean, Toxic's probably one of my favourite songs of all time, to be honest with you.
I mean it's great.
It's a stone cold banger.
I thought it was Toxic, but then I was thinking about Slave, and I was like, actually, maybe that's more slip-inable. But Toxic's great. But I remember thinking, like, awesome tune, but also zero ego there, dropping a bit of Britney in the midst of a real banging set.
Well, funnily enough, Shub, you once said something to me, which is an argument that I've used a lot about playing cheesy pop songs. And you know, and I think Toxic by Britney Spears, I mean, it is a cheesy pop song, but it is also actually an absolutely brilliant piece of music. I mean, undoubtedly. Yeah. But I remember you once said to me is that you have to remember with people who write pop songs, these people know what they're doing. You know, they know how to write a catchy banger. And that's why their songs end up being so popular, is because these people know what they're doing. And whoever it was that produced Toxic, they knew exactly what they were doing.
They certainly did. It goes round in my head so much. But now I'm thinking about it, Slave is a banger too. Slave feels like a Prince song to me. Like Prince just gifted a song to Britney and she Britneyed it up. Great tune. And I mentioned there author, photographer, DJ, scratcher, all these things. It feels like all the things that you're passionate about. There's like a deep thread of creativity running through there. So where do you think that came from?
I mean, undoubtedly it came from my parents. My mum, well, she's retired now, but before she retired, she was quite a successful author for her entire life. And my father was also involved in the arts as a journalist. And so I think the combination of the two of them, I was always kind of surrounded by literature, by visual arts particularly. Strangely, my dad's very into music and used to play the piano and listens to a lot of music, but I think my musical influences definitely came more from my sister. But certainly, yeah, I've been brought up by creative people, and that the idea of creativity has always been a kind of central theme in my life. And certainly, I think that because of my parents' careers, that they also valued careers in the arts, which I think sometimes some people's parents try to steer their children away from those things because of the kind of
100%.
insecure nature of life as an artist. But my
Yeah.
parents definitely actively encouraged both me and my sister to pursue careers in the arts. I mean, my sister is an actress. I was a photographer for a while. And while the DJing
No
is by
more?
no means any professional pursuit, it's definitely a kind of what I call like a serious hobby, if you know what I mean. And so that I think that creativity has definitely been central to my life, and that has been actively encouraged by both of my parents for sure.
Nice. And I mean, serious hobby feels like an understatement. You were at like the world championship. Are you going back again?
Yeah, indeed. I'm part of a little DJ crew called the Too Nice Crew for social media users out there. You can check us out on Instagram. Yeah, we went to compete in an international DJ competition in Poland last year called the IDA. Sadly, we didn't do very well. But undeterred from that experience, we're now currently practicing our routine for our return this year, and hopefully we'll do better than we did last year. But winning or losing is kind of like, I'd like to say it's kind of irrelevant. No, of course it's not. You want to win, don't you? The world of the scratch DJ or turntablism is pretty small, and so it's actually quite nice to go and kind of commune with the fellow scratch nerds who are about the only 400 people in the entire world that you can have a conversation with any depth about this extremely nerdy, very
Commune.
esoteric activity.
Yeah. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. Is it deeply technical scratch chat?
God, you wouldn't believe it. It's like it's almost like a foreign language to most people, lots of talks of like 3-click flares and, 2-tap orbits and shit like that nobody else has got a
Wow.
clue about what you're talking about.
That sounds cool. And I'm guessing music came first for you because it's probably more accessible to a child than photography and writing. Is that right? Or
I think probably reading came first.
okay.
My parents both read to me when I was a child. I took up reading quite early on. So I think reading first and then music second. I mean, really, my sister was the big musical influence in my life. I can remember when we'd go, this is in the 80s, in those bygone era, that when we'd go on holiday, my sister would always make these like holiday mixtapes. And there was always this
Yes.
period where she'd have to record from like tape to tape. And so she'd have like a tape recorder that she'd put next to a speaker, and everyone in the house would have to be absolutely silent while she did this kind of recording.
Yes. That is so old school.
It's so old school, but she really introduced me to things like to hip hop particularly. I can remember Insane in the Brain being a big holiday tune.
Yeah.
I remember she introduced me to Straight Out of Compton by NWA, and I remember her saying to me, "You can't play this when our parents are around because I'll get in loads of trouble." So she was really the big musical influence for me, for sure. And I would say that hip hop, particularly kind of rhythm-based music, has been a theme all the way from being a very small child now to as an adult, and that was almost entirely down to my sister. She definitely was the
Nice.
one who kind of
Oh, a lot to
fanned
be
the flames
grateful
of that.
for. So what kind of age are you talking about there when your sister was playing your Cypress Hill and NWA and stuff?
So I can remember it very vividly. My sister did like a gap year where she went to live in Paris for a year, and I went to join her, and I must have been like maybe 10, 11, something like that. And I went to spend I can't remember, some time with her. And I remember her slipping me the cassette tape of NWA and being like, "Don't tell our parents." And I think the thing that I loved most about it as a kid was I'd never heard anybody swear on a record
Yeah.
before. I remember like being with my mate and just being like, "Oh my God, they swear so much. This is amazing. This is the best thing ever." And we're just like so into the swearing that we talk about the album, my friend and I, and be like, "Which is your favorite song with no swearing in it?" Because obviously all the ones with swearing were the ones you like the most, but you had to know what was the best non-swearing song. So yeah, from about 10 or 11, I would say.
Wow. That must have blown. Like I remember, I don't know exactly what age I was, but I had a real weird route into hip hop that I'd watched Uncle Buck, and
Classic on
Yeah,
ramp for
and I heard Wild Thing by Tone Log, and
yeah.
then bought the album, and like like Wild Thing's like such a kind of a cheesy song, mainstream sort of song, and the rest of the album was like freaking awesome.
Yeah, Funky Cold
And then
Medina.
yeah, Funky Cold Medina, and a couple of steps from there, I bought Predator by Ice Cube, and I remember listening to that, and it was just like angry and swearing, and I must have been about 10 at the time. I was like, this is crazy. I've never heard anything like this before. It just blew everything wide open. But yeah, I don't even think that comes close to NWA as a 10-year-old. So
You know, do you know what's really funny about NWA is that like I got into like my sister gave me that tape and she gave me Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy, another seminal hip
that
hop
is
album.
so good.
Yeah, but then like I kind of as I grew older, I moved away from hip hop. I got into kind of dance music and things like that. And then in my early 20s, when I was getting into hip hop DJing, I bought NWA straight out of Compton on like a repressed double vinyl, and I listened to it. And I realized that I still really liked it. And what I realized about it was that as a grown up, I was kind of over the swearing. Swearing was now a normal part of my
Yeah.
everyday life.
Really? Are you there yet?
And that I realized that what I really liked about it was that it's all made from funk samples. And
Mm.
I had this kind of like road to Damascus moment where I suddenly realized that what it was that I liked in music was funk, and that I was able to identify funk as a particular genre. And
Yeah,
from
yeah,
there was
yeah.
able to pursue other music within that, as well as hip hop, particularly funky hip hop, but starting to get into proper funk music. And it was that, yeah, like I say, it was that real realization of, oh, what it is that I like in music is funky music. And that
Yeah.
album, 10 years later, suddenly reintroduced me or kind of made me aware of those things that I was into.
That's so cool. So that kind of I don't know if epiphany is a bit of a strong word, but that all happened when you started DJing.
Well, I mean, when I started DJing, I was into some music that I'm now somewhat ashamed of. But as I kind of lost interest in the music that I was ashamed of, it was really, I got pulled back into hip hop, and so it was DJing really that brought me back into hip hop. And hip hop is a central part of my life, and has formed a recurrent theme throughout my adulthood, both musically and aesthetically and things like that. And yeah, it's become a lifelong interest and passion, hip hop more
Mm,
generally, as well as the DJ.
nice. And I think like hip hop DJs probably just have like some of the best collections of funk music, like, the sort of DJs that really just do like crate diggers that go and find obscure funk songs. Like, yeah, I think it's beautiful because that's, like you're saying, that is kind of when you actually listen to some of your favorite hip hop songs, so much is James Brown, P Funk, and then once they've exhausted all that, then they start digging into some just old classics. But yeah, it's beautiful, and I love that journey from like hearing a hip hop song and then going and listen to the original, and you hear that little bit they sampled in the context of a much bigger song, and it's like, oh my god, this has just come alive in a completely different way now. I love that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's so much music that I found from hip hop in exactly that way as you
Yeah,
described, as you hear it in a hip hop song and then you find the source material where it's sampled from. And it's like there's music, not necessarily even funk music, but there's loads of like Brazilian like samba music and things like that that I've discovered from listening to hip hop. And you're like, if I didn't listen to hip hop, I would probably never have become aware of that music. And so that hip hop is this like, yeah, like you say, it's a thing that links everything together. I often think it's like a spider's web or a jigsaw puzzle where all these
mm,
pieces kind of like fit together, and that you get to learn so much about music through hip hop that then
yeah.
is kind of, it transcends hip hop. I mean, wouldn't say that I have the most eclectic ear, so I don't know if it's good if that's the case with other music, but certainly with hip hop, I find that hip hop is a way to find other music, and it's beautiful in that way. It's beautiful sometimes when you're not expecting it and you hear a hip hop sample of a tune that you really love, in something and you're like, oh my God, that's where this comes from. And then
Yeah,
from
yeah,
that, you
yeah,
can start delving into that music or that artist and just finding all of this other like just solid gold that you never would have listened to if hip hop
yeah.
hadn't brought you to it.
I love that. I actually heard a nut story the other day about some old hip hop DJs talking about the birth of hip hop, and apparently there's this episode on the Cosby Show where they break down and they end up meeting Stevie Wonder, and Stevie Wonder invites Theo Huxtable into the studio, and he's messing around with some sample machine, and he samples Theo and starts like hitting it, being like, and like there's these old school hip hoppers saying, when I saw that, man, I was like, yeah. I was like, so Stevie Wonder invented hip hop. Oh, I love it.
Nice, nice.
Pretty good story. Yeah, I guess before we get into it, I'm curious to get your take on music in general. I mean, it's a huge part of your life. Why do you think it is like music is so important to us as humans?
God, Jesus Christ! You could have primed me for that to think about that a little bit more before the interview.
I'm literally
Why
just
is music
freestyling.
I think it probably speaks to us on some kind of primal level. I think melody and rhythm and things like that probably, I'm not spiritual, but I think it probably connects us to a deeper part of ourselves or to some communal experience. So I think there's that part of it. I think human beings, by their very nature, are interested in kind of like abstract expressions, and music, aside from lyrics, just music is one of the most abstract expressions of being a human, if you know what I mean. That music doesn't represent anything really tangible in the world around us, and so it's a form of expression that is totally abstracted. And I think that is something kind of maybe not unique but very specific to humans. Language is an abstract representation of things around us, and I
Yeah.
think that music forms that as well. So I think, yeah, off the top of my head, freestyling. I think those are two things. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else is there. Yeah, I think the communal thing's quite important. And I think there's also that thing that within human beings, and I think this extends to, this is my personal theory of all art, is that art and creativity is like rooted in self-expression, right?
Mm.
And so human beings have this desire to express themselves, and that art is like one of the ultimate forms of that, because it's like how you express something internal externally. And I have this theory that some of my friends vehemently disagree with, but I think that like all art is ultimately kind of rooted in a sense of kind of egotism, that desire to express yourself. That all artists want to make something that comes from their mind and ends up in a more or less public sphere, and that music is one of those forms of expression. And so I think definitely that art and creativity is rooted in that sense of expressing one's self,
Mm.
and that, yeah, there you go.
I totally agree with you on that part. I think, I think it's probably a gift in some ways to find a kind of a vehicle that you can use, whether it is photography or DJing or making music. It's a gift to stumble across something that allows you to really express yourself. And I think once you do, yeah, it's quite addictive. Once you've like, whoa, that just came out of me, and I just made something there. I think it's very addictive and really attractive to go back. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful process, I think.
Yeah, I think there's certainly something very meditative about the
Mm.
process of making art. That when you get into that kind of like that flow state,
Yeah.
I think that is, it's super beneficial for your mental health when you get into that state. I often think about it as kind of like mindless and mindful at the same time.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
find
yeah.
particularly, yeah, when you get at it, right, when I'm scratching, sometimes, I just put the headphones on and it's just me and the scratching. And there's those moments when you're doing it where it's like you are not thinking about what you're doing. It's just flowing from you.
Mm.
And so it's kind of mindless in that sense because you're not thinking about it. But at the same time, it's very mindful because you're only focused on that thing, and
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
it can be
yeah.
frustrating making music or making art when you're not in that flow state because
Yeah.
it's almost like you're thinking about it too much and that you're overthinking it and that somehow blocks those pathways of creativity. But when you
Yeah.
are in those states, you're bang into it. I mean, like for me, one of my favorite life activities is getting stoned and scratching. And when I
Yeah.
do that, I'm just like, there is nothing else exists in the world other than
Yeah,
me
yeah,
and the
yeah.
music. And you often think like, this is the best scratching I've ever done. Well, I'm sure if you recorded it and listened back to it, it'd probably be really sloppy and all over the place because you're dead baked. But just in that moment, it just feels incredible. I often like not just stoned, but particularly stoned. Like I can do like a good session of scratching and I come out of it and I feel like I've just been for a run or I've done something like that where your mind was just like cleared and empty and you kind
Yeah.
of come out of it in this like really like cleansed state because you've just engaged in that meditation. And I
Yeah.
think that
That
is
that
part of that that's in
that
it.
they have done some studies where they've monitored brain activity through various creative acts, and they do find like a deep correlation to actual the brain during meditation as well. There's something about the signals that happen within the brain. And I don't know if you're reading, don't know how far I am through. I'm reading Rick Rubin's The Creative Act at the moment. You should check that out. It's really beautiful. It's not just about what he does making music and stuff. It's just really about how creativity in life and kind of all those things that you had talked about that beautiful flow state of just it almost coming through you. Yeah, you may be a bit too spiritual if you say you don't like the old spiritual lens, because he is like
But you know what?
Guru
I'm
Rick
just
speaks.
overly cynical is my problem, and I recognize that as a problem.
And that's the first step, ads.
I mean, interesting thing just to say about Rick Rubin is that I read a quote from him, or I saw a quote from him somewhere where he was talking about like the creative process. And what he was saying is like when you're being creative, you always have to do what you want to do. And he was like, the one thing you should never do is create things for an audience. Because as soon as you're creating for an audience, you've missed the groove of what that creativity is about, and so it's like you should always just be true to yourself.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
if people like it, cool. But if not, fuck them because it's not about them. It's about you, and all the greatest artists have always just done what they wanted to do. And while the
yeah,
haters might have hated them, actually time proved them to be correct, and in periods of my life when I've gone through periods of depression with my own art, I think I got overly concerned with what other artists were doing or what people might think about my art, and that
mm,
really undermined the quality of the work that I was making, and that you always need to just try and pull it back and just ultimately be true to yourself, and maybe you won't make a living from it potentially, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ultimately you need to do it for yourself. And actually the the history shows us that if you are true to yourself, then actually that's how you make the best art. So
I
good
100%
advice from Rick.
agree. Great advice. And I think I've been on a journey where I was kind of when making music for myself, and I got caught up in, what does this say about me and how do I want it to sound and all these things. And it actually, my creativity started shrinking so much. And then I feel like I kind of unlocked something in taking myself out the equation and not writing about myself, and also almost just letting other characters arise and stuff like that. And my
Yeah.
creativity just went through the roof because I wasn't putting any filter or any rules about what was coming through. I would just write whatever I felt, and like some weird shit comes out. Like I've literally just written this song that feels like a sort of a 21-year-old girl breakup anthem. And I'm like, I don't know where that came from. I'm like a 46-year-old dude, but it just came out and I was like, I'm not going to stop it. I'm not going to change it because it's weird me singing it. I just put a woman's voice on it and then let it go.
Are you
But it's
going
great.
through your like Shakira post breakup album?
I don't know, but maybe I should make one. Just a quick note for anyone listening for the first time. This isn't a podcast about breaking down music theory or production tricks. It's really about the personal connection we all have with music and the way one song can hold an entire story. So if you haven't heard the track we're about to talk about, feel free to hit pause, go give it a listen, and then come back. Now, this turned out to be a bit of an obscure one, so if you go in the comments of this podcast, I've dropped a link in there so you can listen to the tune, but give it a listen. I promise the conversation will land even deeper once the song is in your ears. So, Monsieur Adam Lee, what is the song that you brought with you today?
So the song that I have chosen to talk about today is a song called Cumbersome Trinkets by an obscure Canadian production team called Circle Research, featuring MC Abdominal.
It just rolls off the tongue.
It really does.
And it's a mind-blowing tune. So before we get into the why you chose this one, what was your process? Like, did you find it hard to choose one, or did this one just instantly arise?
This one just instantly arrived, to be honest with you. I would say that it is, for a number of different reasons, which we are going to uncover, a very significant tune in my life. And as soon as you asked me if I wanted to do it, I think it took me about 20 seconds to arrive at the song. And like I say, it's important for me on so many different levels and has changed its uses for me over the, 15 years since I first discovered it to now. So like I say, it was almost instant.
I love the way it came to you. I mean, some people I've approached about this are still wrestling with it, like, 6, 7, 8 weeks on. Other people came really quick. And I kind of don't want to talk too much, but when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect song choice for ads. But tell us, you've hinted at it there. Why this one? Why was this one the choice?
I mean, do you want it chronologically? How do you want to go through it?
I would love it. I guess, let's start at the start. So when do you remember when you first heard this tune? Set the scene.
Well, basically, I can picture it actually pretty well. So it must have been in around maybe 2009. I had recently split up with my girlfriend at the time, and we'd been living in Chester, and I'd moved back to Liverpool, and I was just kind of happily starting a new life. And I'd been through a kind of basically, I'd been with one girl for quite a long time. We split up. I went traveling. I met another girl. We came back from traveling. We lived in Chester for a while. We didn't have a very happy relationship. And then we split up, and I moved back to Liverpool into a shared house. And I was just beginning to start my photography career. And as part of starting my photography career, I bought my first ever laptop for myself. And for the first time in my life, I had regular access to the internet. So for any young people out there, this must sound bizarre, the idea that you didn't have internet access for your whole life. But
They're like, all right, Granddad.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here was I, a 28-year-old man with the first access to the internet. And some friends of people that were friends of people living in my shared house, they introduced me to Spotify, which had only started the year before.
Wow.
And so I was living in this shared house. I was just kind of starting this new life, venturing on this new career. And the beauty of having the laptop and access to the internet as a DJ was suddenly access to lots more music in a way that I'd never really had access to before. And I was looking for music that featured this MC Abdominal. And I was looking for music by him because he featured on an album by DJ Format called Music for a Mature B-Boy, which is one of my favorite hip-hop albums of all time. I mean, it is an absolutely seminal piece of hip-hop. The production on it is amazing. DJ Format, for me, is such a brilliant hip-hop producer because of what we were talking about earlier. He incorporates a lot of that sampling from old records and stuff like that, which for me is a very important part of hip-hop. And Abdominal is a fantastic rapper. And so through Spotify's kind of this person also features on this function, I came across this song, Cumbersome Trinkets by Circle Research. Abdominal is a Canadian rapper. And what I discovered through this is that in very early part of his career, he collaborated with these producers, Circle Research, to make a couple of tunes, one of which was this song, Cumbersome Trinkets. And the thing that I was initially really impressed with is that Abdominal is famed for his like really fast, really technical, really what our friend Charlie would call tiggity tongue twisting rhymes. And as hopefully your listeners will have seen now, the sort of rapping he does on this song, Cumberland Trinkets, is very different from that. It is actually, if you're into your rapping, it is actually super technical, really, really intricate flows, but not in that super fast style.
Absolutely.
And so it was really interesting to hear him rap on a much slower song, and the way it just showed his like prowess as an MC, that over this slower beat he could still produce this, what I think is a phenomenal piece of rapping. I mean, it really is exceptional what he does. And so there is that part of it. And I was also really drawn to it because I'm a bit, although I'm not spiritual, I am a bit of a hippie. And I really liked the kind of the content of what the song is about, which is about kind of rejecting possessions and how possessions can kind of tie you down, and that he wasn't looking for a life that was being tied down. He was looking for a life that was kind of more free. And so I really like the kind of the philosophical undertones, overtones, straight tones of what he's talking about in that, you know. And so a combination of that slow pace of the rapping, how that demonstrated his skill as a rapper, then the content of it, and then also, you know, particularly the second verse where he starts talking about his shoes, which is kind of slightly nonsense, really. It's a bit like a list, but nonetheless, he also has this thing that he's very playful as an MC. And I really like that, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my boom bap gangster rap, you know, I love all of that. And I love all that kind of like braggadocio, you know, I'm into all of that. But I think that sometimes hip hop and rapping can be kind of denigrated as being kind of like a bit puerile in some respects. And don't get me wrong, I love the puerile stuff, and I understand why that is a legitimate criticism of hip hop. But I think that that song really demonstrates that hip hop can be more than just puerile gangster rap, that it can actually be music that can convey serious messages or interesting points. And so I think all of those things together really drew me to
100%. And you know, it kind of transcends sometimes, because it's like, if you forget that it's hip hop, you're listening to it, what I think is a few minutes of a great storyteller. Like, I love the way he starts talking about trainers, because it's like, it just really brings you into his life and the fact that he's not perfect in what he's saying either.
No, exactly.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a great story. It's like some wisdom in there, you know. It's like it's like a lot to think about, but all this time you're really enjoying it as well, the flow of it. I kind of like when that flow, it feels so in the pocket. It's like it's kind of lazy, but the flow is amazing. There's so much to love about it. And like, yeah, I mean, you've kind of mentioned a few bits there, but what did it all hit you at once? What stood out to you most? Was it the lyrics, the flow? Was it just the general sound and energy of the song?
I mean, initially all of it together. I think that the instrumental, the beat that they use, has got this really like calm, kind of like atmospheric nature to it, and the way that he matches his rapping to that atmosphere of the beat is really nice. I think just some of the lyrics in it are really good. I really enjoy things like, I'm not a caterpillar scuttling lairbound, nor is my first name Imelda, you know, and he's talking about Imelda Marcos there, who is this famous wife of, I think, of like an Indonesian dictator who was famed for having hundreds of pair of shoes, which are like demonstrative of the corruption of the Marcos administration. I love that. Or like where he talks about, you know, not singing the no closet space blues and stuff like that. And so he's just making all of these really like funny, playful, interesting little connections. Particularly the first verse, I think, which is probably the more deeply philosophical one. It's just really beautiful, you know, where he talks about, you know, what does he say? All these possessions, they be stressing me out. They got me fretting over theft while I'll be locking my house. But in the process, I'm losing something more priceless. Trust in my fellow human being. It's a life without the kind of freedoms that I'm searching for. You know, it's like he's really talking about that he too is trapped in this thing of like, you know, it's in many ways it's a kind of like an observation on capitalism and things like that, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah,
like
yeah.
how we live in a society where we're encouraged to have lots of possessions, but then the downstream consequences of that is exactly that idea that you keep your house locked. Why do you keep your house locked? Because you don't want people to steal your stuff, and that
100%.
process of not wanting to steal people to steal your stuff undermines your trust in your fellow human being, and that it's like, actually, you know, that's not the way we want to live. No, there's another lyric in it. What does he say? Where he says something like, God damn it, I can't remember. But he just talks about this idea of like these things are supposed to make your life, but they're supposed to make your life more simple, but in fact, what they do is make your life more complicated. And it's like, I really
Yeah,
kind of like,
that's
you
what I
know,
was
that
gonna
speaks to me
say.
on a deep level.
It's like the lines like kind of ironic. These things touted as new and improved are really hurting. They be helping my
Way more than maybe
existence.
helping my existence. They
I
offer
took that
complicated while I'm keeping simplistic.
as like technology, whether it's social media, all these things, you know, like this, all these things that are meant to help our lives. Now we're a few generations into it. We're like, oh fuck yeah, that's actually really not that healthy for us at all. But we're now like, but it's so convenient, even though it's like not healthy for us. I was like, but he's you know he's just dropping these beautiful verses in, and you're like, that's really deep, but it sounds so cool.
That's it. That's it. So he's offering all of these like kind of deep insights, but just delivered in this kind of like hypnotic, lazy kind of flow, you know. And it's like,
Yeah,
I don't know. And for me as well, you know, like I am, as a fan of hip hop, I'm a big kind of like student of rappers, you know, and I'm really interested in the technical art of rapping, the
yeah,
flow, particularly the way you shape your words over the beats. And his flow in that is just absolutely incredible. You know, it really is. I mean, I don't know enough about the technicalities of music to be able to tell you what it is that he's doing there technically, but it's pretty incredible stuff. You know, it's pretty incredible stuff. And to do it at such a slow pace, whereas I think we often think of like good flows from rappers where it's like super fast, like kind of like machine gun style, you know,
yeah.
and that's really clear why that's super fast, because, you know, to be able to get those words out of your mouth that quickly and for it to rhyme and for it to be on beat. Whereas what he does there is this really slow, lazy, and yet super technical at the same time. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's that combination of like delivering these profound truths, but in this fantastical flow and style. Is just like, yeah, it's just mind blowing, really. I mean,
So
it really
true.
is just like, it's incredible.
I just listen to it and I think, man, he sounds cool. I want to be friends with that guy.
Wow. I
Which is,
have actually a funny story about that.
what's that?
Well, so basically, Abdominal is one of my favorite MCs.
Yeah.
And he is also the favorite MC of one of my best friends, this guy, Mike. And we had the opportunity to go and see Abdominal play in Liverpool, where I
No
live.
way.
And I mean, I don't know if this is suitable for the podcast. I'll tell you this bit of the story, which is not the key part of it. But I'll tell you, when we went to see him play, he was playing with a live band called the Obliques.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a kind of like jazzy kind of vibe, right? And he was sat on the stage on a stool doing his set, but he had his legs akimbo, and for some reason me and my mate just got obsessed with staring at his crotch because it was like directly in your eye line. And because we're very silly, irreverent people, we really buzzed off looking at his crotch and like laughing about that. And so it already set the stage for this level of like just silliness. And then he finished his set. And my friend Mike, who really loved him, for some reason got super starstruck. And he was like, an Abdominal was at his Abdominal had set up like a little merch stand
Yeah.
to sell, you know, t-shirts and CDs or whatever. And my friend Mike wanted to go and speak to him, but for some reason he was really weirdly starstruck. And he was like, Adam, will you come and speak to Abdominal with me? Because I'm a bit too scared to go for my own. And so I was like, yeah, sound, we'll go over and chat to him. So we went over, and but I was like stood there, and Mike was like stood at the side looking really awkward. And I just started having this really nice chat with Abdominal, where I was going to him, oh, you know, like, I don't want to seem sycophantic, but, you know, like, I really love your music. You know, you're like one of my favorite rappers. You know, it's really nice to meet you. I really enjoyed your gig. I didn't say I also enjoyed your crotch because I thought maybe that would be inappropriate. I said to you, you know, like, I really love your music. And I said to him, you know, like, I really, really love that song you did with Circle Research, Cumbersome Trinkets.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he was like, whoa, that's like a deep cut. He was like, wow, I'm really impressed that you've heard that tune. You know, that's a pretty obscure song that I've done. That's amazing that you know it. Oh, nice one, nice one. And then I can't remember how we had a little joke about it because he was basically there at this like merch stand, which was like it was actually belonged to the venue, but it looked like a kind of like wheel around little like taco truck or something like that, little taco stand. And we were just talking about the merch, and we had this little joke about how taking that thing on the plane would be like a very cumbersome trinket. And so we had this really nice, like kind of like personal interaction. And then at the end of it, my friend Mike was like, excuse me, Mr. Abdominal, I don't suppose there's any chance you could sign my CD? And Abdominal was like, yeah, all right, then sound, and I signed the CD, and then Mike was like, you're my favourite rapper, you're my favourite rapper. And he was like, oh, okay, mate, nice to meet you. And then we walked off, and Mike was like, for fuck's sake, what is wrong with me? Why have I like collapsed there? And he was like, it was particularly annoying because you seem to have built a genuine rapport with him in a matter of moments, where I was just like a little fanboy who didn't know what to say.
Oh, that is brilliant. Oh, but that's so cool, man. You've like had a good chat with someone's work that you absolutely
And
love.
then and then we actually, I'm trying to think if we supported him and DJ Format at a gig somewhere. I can't really remember, but I remember as well, Mike and I once went to Blackpool to see when DJ Format released his most recent album with Abdominal on it. They did a tour, and Mike and I went to Blackpool to see him, and he and DJ Format recognized both me and Mike at the gig, and then we had a nice, oh, it's you, oh, thanks for coming kind of thing. So I've had a couple of interactions with him, which are very pleasing.
Very cool. You just buddies with him now, basically.
I mean, I'm not sure I'd go that far. I think you'd remember me now. It's been 10 years ago, but you never know.
So 15 years you've been listening to this song after the great discovery of having your own internet. I'm kind of curious to know your relationship with this song. Like, where does it find you, or where do you find it? Because it's not something, as far as I'm aware, that you just put on playlists, or it's not on Spotify. Are there times when you go to this song, or are there times when you wheel this song out? Like, you know, what's your relationship with it?
I would say that I probably don't listen to it as much nowadays as I used to. I occasionally just go and give it a little listen. For DJing, it's quite a good song because it's one of very few 70 BPM songs.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing a mix of tunes that are around that BPM, it's quite a good one to mix there. It was also quite useful to me later on in my DJ career. I got a thing called Serato, which is basically like a piece of software and hardware that allows you to play digital tracks on actual record player. It's kind of like magic, though obviously it's not magic, but basically to the uninitiated, it looks like magic because you're able to manipulate a digital song with this special record.
Yeah.
And so when I got Serato, I began to learn a particular kind of DJing technique called trick mixing. And I did a lot of trick mixing with that song. So later on, that formed kind of part of my relationship with that particular song. But I would say that probably the biggest influence it's had on me is my antidote to an earworm. Because I've listened to it so many times, I know the entire song word for word, like from start to finish.
Do you carry it around in like a special vial on your belt in case like you're out and about?
In my head, special vial in my head. But like, I mean, this relates to the walking with the donkey, is that I do a lot of long distance walking, and quite often when you're doing long distance walking with or without a donkey, you get things stuck in a little loop in your head.
Yeah.
Particularly like, you know, often it's like 2 bars of a song or something like that, and it gets stuck in your head, and it's absolutely infuriating. You know, when I did some walking with the donkey, a friend of mine's kid made up a song about the donkey to the tune of Frosty the Snowman, and I did a 5-month cross Britain walk with the donkey, and I had this fucking song stuck in my head and it was driving me insane. And in order to get that out of my head, I would recite the lyrics to Cumbersome Trinket from
Wow.
start to finish in my head in order to erase whatever annoying earworm loop I had going on in my mind. And I would say, I do quite a lot of walking. I would say on almost every walk that I do, there'll be some point of it in which I will rap some of that to myself in order to try and clear my mind. And it's fantastic. It really is fantastic. I'd say it's probably one of the only songs of which I could just off the bat sing the lyrics from start to finish.
Love
And it
that.
has proved salve in my life.
Yeah. And I think, I wanted to wait until you talked about it a bit first in terms of your impression of the song. But I think, in this context, when you chose this song, when I listened to the song, when you sent it through, I felt like it was such a reflection of maybe some of your values, maybe the way you go about living your life. And I think it stood out to me because I guess the book that you're working on at the moment is about you walking with Martin, your donkey. You go on huge walks. The last one where I met you where was that? Was that the length from top of Scotland to south of England?
Yeah. In 2018, I walked the length of Britain from a place called Cape Wrath in the northwest corner of Scotland down to another place called Portland Bill on the south coast of England. And I did that over 5 months with my donkey Martin, who served as my pack animal. And in that, I recited the lyrics to Cumbersome Trinkets many times in my head as we walked the highlands and the byways of England. Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Like, I remember, I don't know whether you sent it or I kept coming across them. There was various clippings from local press where everyone was just like, there is a man with a donkey walking through this place, and then there'd be a photo of you. But it's really interesting because, like, when I think when you listen to this song, most people are going to be like, oh, yeah, no, there's some great wisdom in there. But certainly if I was to look at myself, I think great wisdom, but I'd walk away and I wouldn't really embody that in my own life. But when I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I kind of feel like there's a lot of it that ads embodies, like months walking with a donkey, with a backpack and a tent and stuff like that. You've kind of left so much behind. And yeah, I mean, I guess I imagine there was ups and downs on that. I guess you were happy in that lifestyle with leaving everything else behind that you kind of told or that you might think you need sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I enjoy about both walking with Martin the donkey, but also the idea of just walking in the outdoors and kind of long trips of camping and things like that, is that you do reduce your life down to the bare essentials, if you know what I mean. Your life becomes one of kind of like, you carry your house on your back or on Martin's back in the form of a tent. You carry a limited amount of food, and you basically have the things with you that you need to survive. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like you're in a survival situation. You're not definitely not in any danger of dying. But you definitely reduce life down to its simplicities. And I think that in many ways, that's what Abdominal is talking about in the song, is about that desire to reduce one's life down to those simplicities, to the essentials that you need to live. And so I can definitely identify that, when he's talking about the bird, that the bird doesn't have a backpack.
I love that.
Because if he did, he couldn't fly. Mr. Bird has no use for cumbersome trinkets. They'd only weigh him down when the wind hits his wingtips, So he's definitely talking about that. He's talking about reducing life down to those simplicities. And that's definitely something that I can identify with. Now, don't get me wrong. You've been to my house. If people could see my house, I have many cumbersome trinkets in my house. I'm not particularly bothered by kind of expensive things, but I certainly am surrounded by lots of things of sentimental value and stuff like that. But definitely that idea of being out in nature, particularly for long periods of time, for extended periods of time, is those opportunities to free yourself from those cumbersome trinkets of life that can weigh you down. And like when I did the big walk with Martin, when I was out on the road with Martin, my life was reduced down to those simplicities. The things that I was concerned with was where we were going to camp, where Martin was going to be able to eat, what and when I was going to eat and what the weather was going to be like. And all your choices were related to those
Yeah,
factors.
yeah.
Um, at at a point in the walk, Martin became injured and we had to take a month off. And, luckily I'm quite privileged that I was able to go and stay with my uncle, who is a farmer. But once we stopped moving and I was staying with my uncle, suddenly all the exterior pressures of life started to kind of press down upon me once again,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was things of like money, stuff like that. I'd saved up money to do this trip, but suddenly we're having a month off, and it was like, well, with this month off, am I going to be able to afford to finish the rest of the trip? And it was once we stopped moving and started being static that the pressures of life, that those trinkets that can be cumbersome,
Mm.
started to kind of push down upon me once more. And so I could definitely, that part of the song really kind of speaks to me, and that idea of those things that weigh you down. I mean, in a more kind of facetious level, in that first verse, he also talks about his backpack and how he has different pockets and different things go in those pockets, and I am a man who is rooted in routine, and I definitely identify with the idea of specific pockets for specific things. And particularly when in the outdoors, I honestly believe that like routine and ritual are essential parts of what it means to live in the outdoors, because actually the rapid access to the right pocket with the thing that you need in it
Yeah.
is the sort of thing. Again, I'm not going to say it's life or death, but it's definitely, if it starts raining, knowing exactly which pocket of your backpack the raincoat is in, those split seconds make the difference. Or when you camp, knowing where all of the stuff is in the camp, so in the dark you can find it quickly and stuff like that. So I can certainly identify with Abdominal and his musings on the idea of bags and pockets.
Mm.
I don't think that's particularly
Musings on
profound.
bags and... This should have been the chat with him. Abdominal, sir, I particularly enjoy your musings on bags and pockets. Have you ever
Oh,
considered
maybe
rapping about
maybe next
donkeys?
time I see him, I'll enter into a dialogue about his musings
Or maybe
on
it's
bags and
Mike's.
pockets.
It's got to be Mike's turn next time.
I'll give that to Mike in his attempt to build rapport with Abdominal. But also, like the second verse, which I think, is probably less profound than the first verse, is all about different shoes for different situations,
Yeah.
and how although he doesn't want to have 16 individual shoes too much, got me singing the No Closet Space blues. I can identify with the idea of specific tools for specific jobs,
Yeah.
and I have a number of pairs of shoes. I don't know if it's 8 pairs or 16 individual shoes, but certainly well, if we have a little equine pun here, horses for courses, and I could definitely get on board with the idea that you do need different shoes for different jobs, and so I'm kind of with him there. Oh, and then another, I'm just thinking, I'm just flowing off the top of my head here, but he also talks about a lyric where he says, "You'll never see abs in a suit,"
Yeah.
and as you call me, ads. I often, in my mind here, you'll never see ads in a suit, and
Yeah.
at the age of 16, I made a life promise that I was going to engineer my life in a way in which I could always wear trainers and never wear a tie. And
Trainers.
here we are 30 years later,
No.
and I've managed to realize that dream.
I think the
So yeah,
nearest
there's a
I've
lot in
ever
there.
seen you is a kilt. A
A
cult.
kilt, indeed. Well, weddings and funerals, I think are fair enough to wear a suit at, but in terms of like the sort of job that would require you to wear a suit,
Yeah.
no way. So yeah, you will never see ads in a suit.
Sounds like a challenge. What if I die?
Wow. Well, first of all, I'll have to sort the Prince songs out, and then we'll get to the attire.
No, that's super interesting. Like everything you're saying there, and I guess it feels like maybe it was such an obvious choice because musically it's bang on. You massively love the flow of the rapping, but there might be something in there that just chimes so hard with how you see life that it's kind of got a special hold for it to rise to the top so quick, I guess.
Yeah, I think sometimes as a fan of hip hop, you can have like the beats, the tune, the instrumental that you really like,
Mm.
and sometimes the rapping over the top of that might be not so much. Sometimes you can have the flow of the rapper that you really like, but the lyrical content might not be that good,
Yeah.
or the beat might not be that good. But I think for me, that tune particularly is one of those moments where it's all of the things together. It's like the perfect synergy of all of those things. The content is great, the flow is amazing, the beat is brilliant. The combination of all of those three things together create something which is kind of more than the sum of all of the parts. And I think that there's that element of it that speaks to me, is it's like it's all of those things together. And I think as well that, like, I think hip hop can sometimes be a music genre which is kind of like strictly for the heads, if you know what I mean. That it's the kind of music that if you like hip hop, you'll like it, but if you don't like hip hop, you might not really be that into it. But I think that you could play that song to almost anybody and that they would be able to appreciate that as a beautiful piece of music, full stop, be it hip hop or not. And I think that there's that element of it as well, which makes it a kind of a particularly special piece of music, or even maybe a rare piece of hip hop music.
Yeah, I think so. And just as you were talking there, like I mentioned that I'd drop the link to the song in the comments afterwards. I may well drop the instrumental link as well, because that's what I found first. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool tune. And I was like, this is a great song choice. But when you hear the version with Abdominal come in, it just like takes on this whole different life. So that could be cool, I guess, to listen to the instrumental and then listen to it and really feel like what he adds with his words when he starts rapping on the track. Question for you. This may be sacrilege. If someone was to cover this song, who would you want it to be and why?
I mean, Britney Spears, obviously.
Could you imagine? That would be brilliant. I mean, that would just be beautiful in so many ways.
Yeah, I think that if someone was going to cover it, it would have to be someone from a non-hip hop genre. They would have to do it in a completely different way, if you know what I mean. I think the best covers of songs are when they're covered by people from different genres.
Interesting.
I mean, I wonder if you could do it. I've been watching a lot of Yellowstone recently, so I wonder if you could do it in a kind of country music style.
Good answer.
Maybe with a banjo, possibly. And or one of those those jars, you know,
wow,
something like that. Although to be fair, on Abdominal and the Obliques, they actually do a bit of kind of country music, or kind of like Delta blues. So maybe that's going to be too close. I don't know. You've thrown a bit of a curveball at me there. I'd have to have a think about that.
I like the country angle, to be honest, especially because of the message. I can see a guy playing like banjo on a porch.
Yeah.
And it could be a good twist. Because I think you're right. I mean, like, I think the rapping is so good. It's almost like, why would you want another rapper to go and try and do the same, the same verses that he's done?
You'd have to have someone sing it instead, I think, rather than rap it, because you wouldn't be able to get close to the quality of his rapping to do it any justice. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really think. I mean, it'd be obvious just to go for like total like anathemas, maybe like a thrash metal version of it.
Man. Let's see. Let's put it out there.
Yeah. Are there any listeners out there who want to do a cover? Send them in and we'll...
So far, we'll have a death metal version, please. A country version.
Yeah.
Oh, that's been so cool. Listen, what
about sea shanty?
Sea shanty, wow. Yeah, I quite like the versions where it fits the kind of the persona. Like a sea shanty out at sea. Nothing I need apart from this boat and this waves. Pirate version.
Mr. Bird don't need no cumbersome trinkets.
Yeah, that really works. Okay, sea shanty version it is. I'll get to work on it.
Any pirates out there listening, please?
But I would, before we close, looking back on everything that we talked about, I think sometimes it's different when you really delve into something, but what stands out most for you right now? Has anything kind of changed since the start in terms of your thinking about this tune?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I've thought a lot about this tune over the years. So it's interesting, I think, to get someone else's perspective on it. I think particularly someone such as yourself, Shub, who is a bit of a kind of deep thinker, and I think probably shares some of my inclinations towards the ideas of possessions and being weighed down by them and stuff like that. So I think it's good to hear someone else agree with me.
More of that, please. Well,
More of that, please. More agreement from other people who aren't me with what I think, always.
thank you for bringing this song, amazing song, and thank you for bringing yourself so openly. It's been a pleasure to share this time with you. Before we close, where can people find you, follow your work, connect with you?
Not wanting to be weighed down by cumbersome trinkets. I don't really use social media, so you can't really follow me on social media. I have a blog called Adam's Walks, but I've not updated that for nearly 10 years. But if you want to read a little bit about my experiences of traveling in various parts of the world, if you want to know a little bit about my experiences of walking with the donkey, if you search on the Guardian website for walking with a donkey, there's an article about me from back in May
Yeah,
where I talk about my experience walking across the UK with the donkey, which is quite a good kind of overview of the things that I've done with the donkey. But otherwise, I would say just keep your ears peeled for general donkey-based stuff as I'm working on this book. I'm actively trying to find an agent and a publisher for it at the moment. So if you are an agent or a publisher and you're listening to this,
call me.
get in touch, please. Yeah, call me. I'm here. I'm waiting by the phone with bated breath. So yeah, please do get in touch. But like I say, just keep your ears peeled for books about people walking with a donkey, and that will almost certainly be me. If not, I'll be really annoyed that someone's beat me to the punch.
For more donkey-based shenanigans, I have the link to the Guardian article. It's a great read, so I'll drop it in the comments afterwards. But Ads, thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you soon.
Not at all. Shub, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure to talk about this song that I really love. So this has been a great opportunity. So thank you to you.
Pleasure. Take care, dude. It's our time. It's our time. It's our time.